Peace BX. So today we're rolling with the Bronx-wide coalition on a bus tour of community ownership models across the Bronx when it comes to housing, industrialized and commercialized spaces, and workspaces. And our first stop today is the Bronx Community Land Trust and the Belmont Project. What is that? Let's get on the bus and find out.
Today's first visit is going to focus on something that we have been fighting for a really long time. That's community ownership. Many of you have been in fights in your tenant association, in some sort of land struggle. And for some reason, regardless of how strong some of our organizing has been, we don't get all that we want. It doesn't turn out to be the way that community wants it. That dynamic can look a lot different if we were owners. As we think about how to keep people in their homes, to have better living conditions, we also need to think about what about the opportunities that actually will help us build wealth by owning and controlling the land in our community. And that's why in 2020 we fought to incorporate a community land trust and ensuring that its mission is to fight for land that will be community controlled and that will be community governed in perpetuity.
Right now, we're standing across from 2124 Washington Avenue, which, as you can see, is a little bit less than attractive. Here in the Belmont and Crotona neighborhoods, we started with 3 privately owned sites, and with some organizing, got the city to offer a 4th public site. Developers had been ignoring these small, irregular lots, but we saw them as an opportunity to show what community ownership can achieve. The city always pushes for us to build the most units possible, no matter what size those units are. But our community members are tired of packing into studios and 1-bedrooms. So we worked with our partners to ensure that we use a vast majority of our space for 2- and 3-bedroom units, which will house families comfortably for the long term. So now we're going to walk about 2 blocks over to one of the other sites that's also part of this project at 4382 3rd Avenue.
This is the site that we fought for to remove it away from a developer who had been sitting with it for over a decade. Some years ago, we did an action here and we claimed this for community ownership. And it was not easy. And it took a lot of you and also moving our elected officials in the city to move on this.
So let's get into the details. What are we building? When we're finished, over these 4 sites, the project will have 37 cooperatively owned apartments across 4 buildings. The buildings will be owned cooperatively by their residents, and the land underneath will be owned by the Bronx Community Land Trust. This project shows what's possible when tenants move from fighting landlords to building something together to ensure safe, affordable housing, dignity, and stability for generations to come.
All right, we just wrapped up our first tour, and the next stop is Kingsbridge Armory, where we'll be learning about community ownership when it pertains to industrialized and commercialized spaces.
The Kingsbridge Armory is one of the largest armories in the world, and it's right here in the Bronx. And for over 30 years, the Northwest Bronx Community and Clergy Coalition has been fighting for the development of the Kingsbridge Armory. We came together again and asked the community, like, actually, what do you want for this site? What values should guide us? And that's when community ownership became a central priority. Like, what if we owned it? So what do we mean when we talk about real community ownership? So some of the things that are going to be included inside the armory is the manufacturing hub. This will provide affordable space for Bronx manufacturers, food producers, and other entrepreneurs that have either been displaced from the Bronx or are currently at risk of being displaced. We want space for a community hub where Bronx residents can gather, learn, and organize. This will include areas of workforce development, small business development, and worker cooperative incubations, and all kinds of programs that our community has been asking for related to building community ownership. We have the Community Council. It is a permanent governing body made up of Bronx residents, workers, and leaders who will oversee the armory's future. We have a community ownership fund. We have secured a revenue sharing mechanism so that the success of this project directly benefits Bronx residents. Then from construction to long-term operation, the armory will use union labor and meet high environmental environmental standards. This means good wages, safe working conditions, and a project that supports climate justice. As of now, we are currently negotiating a community benefits agreement with a large group of diverse stakeholders that will provide additional accountability for a set of community benefits intended for the community at large.
And the last stop of today's bus tour of community ownership in the Bronx is Mekong Center, where we'll learn about workplace ownership.
Mekong NYC started in 2012. We're a 13 years old social justice organization that brings dignity and value to the lives of Southeast Asians here in the Bronx and throughout New York City. We do this through community organizing, movement building, centering healing through arts and culture, and creating a strong safety net rooted in community power. Very much like our refugee community, trying to find permanent home has been really hard. Being a community that's been displaced from war, violence, and genocide, coming here, getting gentrified like many communities of color here in the Bronx, and then a lot of our work is centered around anti-deportation work. We have a lot of impacted folks that are then getting deported back to countries that they've never been or were very young because of the war, they had to evacuate. And so for us is making sure, how do we uplift that and the amazing power that we have in the Bronx? Why does this Mekong Center symbolize and exemplifies what community ownership looks like? When Mekong first started, we envisioned Mekong as a community center. We actually had a physical space. The building then got sold. We took the time and energy to envision what a community center could look like, actually providing safety net programs to our community, uplifting our arts and culture programs, and centering it and using those as organizing tools for us to do our community organizing work. And so now, all these years later, we've gotten physical space. We've gotten assets here in the Bronx. We've been able to lay some foundational work here.
The idea of community ownership was very new, and really learning that through the Bronx Wide Coalition, that economic democracy and development, something like this is possible, where not only do we have a piece and a buy-in, but we can actually own the whole dang thing, right? So understanding the different levels that it takes to like building community, building awareness, actually having people feel like, no, we deserve more, I think is so important to the work that we do in the Bronx Wide Coalition. And so, you know, having physical space like this, having an asset like this, is just sparking more examples throughout the Bronx, throughout the country, like, no, economic development, democracy can work, and building solidarity amongst all these sectors and communities is one of those things that I think is a prime example of how we can do that here in the Bronx.
All right, that wraps up our community bus tour for today. We've learned about 3 different examples of community ownership in the Bronx and what that can look like. And next, it's time to scale it across the entire Bronx. We have more community bus tours coming up, so join us at the next one. Peace, BX.